Hello everyone, welcome again to Hybrid Financial Consultant or Hybrid Accounts. And today we're just going to take a look at, actually this is Hybrid Financial Consultants, and we're just going to take a look at discounted cash flow methods of investment appraisal. So what the main difference between discounted cash flow methods as well as and non-discounted cash flow methods? Discounted cash flow methods make the use of time value of money as we saw. So when speaking of discounted cash flow methods, that means you have to use time value of money. This is a very, very essential concept. Actually, we differentiated it in the very, very beginning. Discounted cash flow methods use time value of money. This is the main point here, time value of money. If you don't know about time value of money, I advise you to go to the actual video of time value of money. Just go to the playlist to take a look at that. It will help you very, very much. So let's go there. How do we do discounted cash flow methods? First of all, we do timing assumptions or conventions. We assume the following. Initial cash outlay is incurred at the beginning of the first period. So unless specified to the contrary, we presume that the project would require an initial outlay at the beginning of the year. If you say at the beginning of year one, it means at the end of the previous period, which is year zero. So we say the year is taken as zero. We mean at the end of year zero. You know, when you want to discount something, you would have to consider the end of it, the end of that period, so that you know how much to discount. So if the first beginning of year one means the end of year zero, and so the discount rate for year zero is 1. That means this year, end of year zero is now. So I cannot discount anything because I'm now, it is where I need it to be. All right, so we proceed. We're told any transaction during a period is assumed to occur at the end of the period. Any transaction during the period, let's say you've made sales and maybe on August. The year was beginning in January, but on August made sales. Other sales were on September. No need. You just presume them all to have occurred at the end of the year. So that's why we are saying receipts during year 3 are assumed to have taken place at the end of year 3 for discounting purposes. So that's what we do. Another point is cash flows occurring at the beginning of the year will be assumed to have occurred in the previous year. This is what we do for discounting purpose again. If you say something has occurred at the beginning of year 3, that means the beginning of year 3 is just about the end of year 2. So to bring it now, I just have to come back 2 years. So the beginning of year 3, instead of using n equals to 3, you say n equals to 2. That's what I'm just trying to bring to you. So you should note that. So let's say cash flows here at the start, cash flows at the start of year 5 would be treated as cash flows at the end of year 4. Year 4, meaning that n would be equal to 4. So do not be swayed and use this 5. You just have to read here. If it is the start, you have to use 4 for discounting purposes. I hope you get me. Right now, that's why you're saying cash flows at the start of year 6 are discounted as those at the end of year 5. So they are matched together with the cash flows at the end of year 5. You have to be very careful about that. Now, after that, let's just go to discounted payback period. Actually, we learned about discounted cash flow methods. We said we have discounted payback period, net present value, as well as internal rate of return. So let's go and take a look at discounted payback period. Here we are. Discounted payback period. This actually is just the same as payback period. It attempts to determine actually the time after the time at the duration at the end of which we will recover the initial investment of the project. This is what we attempt to do when speaking of discounted payback period. But recovered by what? Instead of using cash flows as they are, we discount our cash flows. So that's why we say it is the time taken to recover cost of investment, usually initial investment, using the present value of cash flows. Sorry, this is present, not present. This is present value of cash flows, right? So we say it applies the discount rate Oh, it applies discounting to arrive at a period just after which present value of cash flows equals to outlay on investment. So that's what we do. Now, this is investment appraisal. We should ask ourselves, what criteria should I use to know whether the investment is worthwhile undertaking or not? So there is a criteria to follow here. We say the investment is financially acceptable if discounted payback period is within the target payback period. Let's say you have said that, oh, I need my discounted payback period not to be more than 4 years, but your project actually has a discounted payback period of 5 years. That means you have to discard the project. The project won't be financially acceptable. Just like that. So let's presume that you have two projects. For competing investments, which we usually call them mutually exclusive, because when you're told investments are mutually exclusive, we mean that they cannot be undertaken together. If one is undertaken, the other one has to be sacrificed, probably due to the use of same resources. Maybe money is not sufficient. Maybe you're using the same type of labor, and labor is not sufficient in the market, so you cannot sell small. So we say priority is to those with the shortest payback period. So in case maybe you have set your discounted payback period at 4 years, but the first project requires 2 years and the second 3 years, you have to go for the shorter period one, that is 2 years. That's what we do about discounted payback period. All right. So let's take a look at advantages and disadvantages. Actually, it shares a lot of advantages and disadvantages, just like actually the normal payback period, except that this one uses time value of money. So that's why we say any discounted payback period accounts for time value of money, which is a very, very fine advantage. It gives the edge or discount on discounted cash flow methods. But also we say it is easy to understand as you just discount your cash flows and you compute it. And then you're told the quick cash flow returns on initial investment help in maximizing liquidity. So this is our point here. It attempts to maximize liquidity because it prioritizes quick recovery of the investment. That means the firm becomes more liquid. It doesn't have to wait much longer before recovering the investment. And then you're told the quick cash flows returns on initial investment help in minimizing risk. Of course, by enhancing liquidity, you also minimize the risk because you are minimizing the risk of failing to meet short-term maturing obligations in the arise. That's just an example. All right. Now let's go to the disadvantages. Actually, for other advantages, you could just add them. For example, discounted payback period uses cash flows, while some methods like accounting rate of return do not use cash flows, but they use profit, and profit can be easily manipulated. All right, let's go to another point here. Disadvantages of discounted payback period here. What are the disadvantages of discounted payback period? First of all, we say total profitability is ignored. Of course, it ignores profits because it only deals with cash flows, but profits are just a part of the business. And actually, you may not have received the cash, but actually you could receive them late in the later periods. And actually, some profits should actually be considered because even when judging investment, for example, measures like earnings per share are considered, and earnings actually incorporates non-cash items like depreciation. So it's just like that. Okay, another disadvantage here, we are told, it ignores cash flows beyond payback period. This is a very, very bad disadvantage because even if actually you can earn a lot of money, 10 times the initial investment, but that money is delayed, it could be received in the longer time. Actually, discounted payback period actually discards the project. That's why we say normally discounted payback period is used alongside other methods. That's why, for example, it can be used for screening. Sometimes we say it can be used as a screening test for investments. All right. Now, as I said, a project that takes time to take off, but subsequently earns substantial profits might be rejected, whereas a smaller project paying back quickly may be accepted, which is a very, very huge disadvantage over here. All right. The cutoff period for deciding what is acceptable is arbitrary. Of course, this is very, very reasonable. Because when using discounted payback period, as I said here in the criteria, you said the target payback period. How do you know if your target is appropriate? How do you set your target payback period? You just decide it in an arbitrary manner. So the cutoff period for deciding is arbitrary, no sufficient ground for it. But also you're told it does not evaluate investment in absolute monetary terms. Of course, this is done only by NPV. NPV, which is net present value, can tell you, oh, if you undertake this investment, you would earn actually a value that is the weight of which is currently, let's say, $20,000, just like that, and you have a discounted payback period. So, and you have your NPV, I mean. So discounted payback period also has limitations. Now, let's go and take an example of a discounted payback period. Let's go for an example. Discounted payback period. Let's go for an example. Just a single example, and we are done. Here, take a look at question number 5. Now, this question, we already did payback period, and now we are on discounted payback period. So we are given a question here. We are given here is project XY had the following cash flows, year 0 to year 4, and these are the cash flows. Year 0, there's an cash outflow of $100,000. Year 1, 25, year 2, 35, year 3, 30, and year 4, 50. We are told the relevant discount rate is 10%. Now, let's go to part B. What is project XY's discounted payback period? Let's go and compute the discounted payback period. And then we are asked, should the project be undertaken if payback period is 4 years? Now, first of all, let's compute the discounted payback period and the rest will follow. All right, let's go to part B on discounted payback period. Here we are. So first of all, you just have to copy your question. Year 0, we are given cash flows here. And then year 1, we are given the cash flows from the question. We are given the cash flows for year 2 like this. And then we are given the cash flows for year 3 like this. And lastly, we are given the cash flows for year 4 just like this. So before computing cumulative values, first of all, discount your cash flows. How do we discount the cash flows? You first compute the discount factor. How do we compute the discount factor? Actually, I showed this all, I showed it all when dealing with time value of money. Simply speaking, the discount factor is obtained this way. So discount factor, I hope you have your calculator with you there. Discount factor equals you just take 1 over 1 plus R, then you take it to the power of n. So just like this, and you will have each and everything. So if you start with year 0, so for year 0, what do we do? For year 0, just take 1 divided by, all right, 1 plus R. We are given the discount rate at 10%. So 10% means 0.1, and then you raise it to the power of 0. So simply speaking, 10% means 0.1, and 1 plus 0.1 would be 1.1. So I could just write it as 1.1. So for year 0, you take it and you would have 1. For year 1, you put there 1, and then you would have 0.909. For year 2, you put 2, you'd have 0.826. For year 3, you put 3, you'd have 0.751. And for year 4, you'd put 4, ending up with 0.683. So that's what you have to do. You could just try it out on your calculator. Actually, I'll teach you later how to use the calculator to make matters much simpler. So this will be the discount rate for year 1. And after having that discount rate, to obtain the present value now of cash flows is very simple. You take the cash flows, multiply by the discount rate, and you have your present value here. You repeat, year 2, you have 0.909, multiply by 25,000, and you would have 22,725. Then year 2, 35,000, you multiply by 0.826, and you have 28,910. So you just multiply cash flow times discount factor, you obtain your present value. I'm repeating again here. if you just take your cash flow, you multiply by the discount factor, you would have the present value of cash flows just like that. So you can just write out and find out the reality. So for year 3, I take 30,000 times 0.751 and end up with 22,530. And lastly, 50,000 times 0.683, and you have 34,150, just like that. And after getting that, you now have to compute the present value of cash flows. So how do we do that? All right, cumulative present value of cash flows. You start with year 0. Year 0, we had $100,000. You put it here. This is 100,000, sorry. This is not 0, it's a bracket. You take 100,000, you plus 22,725, and you end up with 77,275 negative. You take this figure here and you add 28,910, and you have the negative value of this figure here. And you take this one, you add 22,530, and you obtain this value here. And lastly, you take this negative value here, you plus 34, ending up with 8,315, just like that. So after there, you can now determine your discounted payback period. How do we determine the discounted payback period now? You just ask yourself. We had negative values. We came down, negative here. Here, sign change from negative to positive. So you have to locate the point of sign change. This from negative and this one is positive. So we know that we are in this line here, year 3. So your discounted payback period would be 3 years, and then we have to add up the months. So to make matters simple, you just take this for 3 years. You are in this same line here. You take this 25, which is here, 25, and then you come diagonally. You move this way, you cross this way, and you take this one, that is 34,150, just like this. And after this, you can just add up the numbers and arrive at the final solution. Then you obtain 3.575 years. So you can just have this. Or as I explained before, how did I get this one and this one? To obtain 25,835, what we mean is discounted payback, it should be sufficient that cumulative cash flows could go to 0. From negative 25,835 to 0, the difference is 25,835. And then from negative 25,835 to 8,315, this minus this, you obtain this figure here. That's why we just plug it in here. So we are told now, should the project be undertaken or not? From the question, we are given the target discounted payback period is 4 years, but actually we can for our investment to be financially acceptable, 3.75 years should be within 4 years. And since it is within 4 years, we actually the investment should actually be undertaken. So this is how we do discounted payback period. Now listen, in case you are given the cash flow that we are totally identical, let's say year 1 was 25,000, year 2 25, year 3 25, year 4 25, what would you have done? For this case, you just have to proceed this way, because after discounting the cash flows, you would have different present values, even if the initial values were the same. So you have to be very careful on this. And the next is net present value. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe for regular updates. All right, see you next time.